Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 954, 954, November the 11th, 2019, Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, quite a bit to get to today. Of course, we'll find out who the winner is of the Dumbass of the Week. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is an article I stumbled onto while I was reading over some things over there at ronpaulinstitute.com. And unfortunately, I can't remember the full name of the guy who wrote the story, but he's the guy that you normally see does the live broadcast. Daniel, can't remember his last name, but he's a pretty good journalist and professional type journalist, researcher, and he's got a couple really good sources within the swamp. He's been around the swamp for a long time, has a lot of good sources in there, and intelligence and things like that. And so he's got this article where he says, according to a couple very solid and reliable sources who would know, he says that this multi-agency task force, or John Brennan's six-agency task force, it's been given many different names, but he says that this particular task force within the group of people who were in the task force set up by Brennan in the late spring or late March, early April of 2016, which is something we've talked about a lot here on TowerGate. Probably, if you've watched TowerGate for very long, you know that I've probably talked more about the multi-agency or six-agency task force than probably any other YouTuber out there. I discovered it basically about a year and a half ago. Jeff Carlson wrote about it. It was first broken by a journalist over in the UK. And then, of course, Brennan went on Rachel Maddow's show and told her about this task force that he set up. But according to these sources on the inside who would know, for the people who were inside this task force, the name of it was the Trump Task Force. The Trump Task Force is what John Brennan referred to it as, along with the group of people who were brought into it. And the goal of the Trump Task Force, set up by Mr. Potato Head, was to spy on the Trump campaign and to carry out covert operations against the Trump campaign. He also says that Michael Gaeta, who was the FBI agent over in Rome, who was Christopher Steele's handler, was a part of the Trump task force. But the most bombshell revelation in this story, and certainly the most alarming accusation, or whatever you want to call it, in this story, is that they say that the Guccifer 2.0, Guccifer 2.0 is the one who is alleged to have hacked into the DNC and then released that information to WikiLeaks, which we all know is not true. But according to this story, the Guccifer 2.0, Guccifer himself, or whoever it is that's pretending to be Guccifer 2.0 in this particular plot, was part of one of the covert operations that was carried out by Brennan's task force, which he referred to, along with the other people, as the Trump Task Force. Now, this is blowing right here, because we know that Durham and Barr are very interested in the origins of how all this got started, the Trump-Russia thing got started. And maybe that's why they're focusing so hard on the intelligence community. Maybe, after conversations with Barr, that's why Trump suggested to the Ukrainian Prime Minister about CrowdStrike and the servers being in Ukraine. Now, this makes a lot of sense. If we're talking about cooking up the Russian narrative and all the other things that went on that we know about, plus some things we probably don't know about that never succeeded, or were plans, maybe on paper, but never made it into the game. This is one that you could certainly, this explains a lot of things. This explains a lot of things, because I believe Julian Assange, when he says that Guccifer 2.0 was not his source. He doesn't know who Guccifer 2.0 is. He says his source was, according to Mr. Butowski and Miss Ratner, Seth Rich and his brother Aaron were the sources who gave WikiLeaks those emails. But as far as who did the so-called alleged hacking into the DNC, that's been blamed on Russians. But as we know, there were no Russians. So who did break into the DNC? Who did get into their servers? If in fact someone got into their servers at all. And there probably was something that happened there. But this would certainly explain it if that was part of one of the covert operations that was put in play by Mr. Potato Head through his task force, which he referred to as the Trump Task Force. That would certainly make a lot of sense. It would certainly add up. And it would coincide with everything else that we know that was going on at that exact same time. Because remember, this so-called hack apparently occurred sometime in late March, which is exactly the time when the agency task force was set up. It's right about the time that people like Papadopoulos and Roger Stone and Cavuto were being tagged by so-called Russians. It's during the time when the whole Flynn thing was being cooked up with Halper. All these things were either in the pipeline or were being carried out at the time. So this would certainly fit right in the timeline of when all these sort of covert intelligence activities being launched against the Trump campaign were happening. The timeline fits beautifully. It fits into the narrative perfectly because they needed a narrative. And this certainly would have, more than anything at that time, fed into the narrative to allow them to sort of kick off everything. Oh, the Russians hacked the DNC. That would be a good way to make up an excuse for what really happened. It would also serve the larger goal of using this to later tie Trump to Russians and trying to cheat Hillary out of the election and all the other things that sort of naturally seem to flow out of the alleged DNC hack. So it's very interesting that Barr and Durham were really focusing a lot on the origins of how this whole thing got started. And if you're looking at that, you're going to have to go back and look at the DNC hack, so-called hack, whatever happened there. And you have to wonder at this point, has Durham and Barr figured out that in fact it was not Guccifer 2.0, or if it was Guccifer 2.0, he was just another one of those players recruited by Brennan to conduct this hack. And I think if we find out that that's true, then I think we're going to find out that Guccifer 2.0 was actually some entity created by CrowdStrike, which would explain why Trump mentioned CrowdStrike in the call to the Ukrainian Prime Minister. And think about this. Trump doesn't follow these things that closely to those kind of details to even know about CrowdStrike, and you can tell when he's talking about CrowdStrike that he doesn't really know who CrowdStrike is per se, the way we all do, because we've gone in depth into CrowdStrike. He just knows he's heard the name CrowdStrike and that there may be some bad apples or bad characters involved, and they may have had something to do with some things. So, but knowing what we all know, it makes a lot more sense. So it's very likely that CrowdStrike was brought in by Brennan, because they have that close relationship with the CIA, that they were likely brought in to plant the so-called evidence that would be later used by CrowdStrike to say, oh yeah, here's what happened. It's Fancy Bear and Fuzzy Bear, and the Russian hackers or Eastern European hackers working for the Russians, and start building on that narrative, which led to the larger narrative as we moved farther into the process of Trump, Russia. First it was Russia hacking the DNC, then they leaked the emails to WikiLeaks, and then somehow they had to try to tie Trump to it, and they tried to do that by framing Papadopoulos using Stefan Halper, Mifsud, and Down the Hatch Downer. So you can see where all these things come together, and I think it's a very good article. It makes a lot of sense, and a lot of the things that are being said here would certainly fit into the narrative. So I think this is a very sort of a groundbreaking bit of information, and I'll be very interested to see. I don't know if something like this will actually show up in the Horowitz report, because it's not something he's looking at, but we know that Barr and Durham are very, very dialed in to the origins, and we have been hearing that they're very interested in the intelligence community as it relates to the origins. And that tells us that somebody may know something here, and that we may find out when the Barr Durham report comes out and whatever happens beyond that, that in fact this Guccifer 2.0 was in fact working for the Trump task force, John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, working for his task force, and that this was all part of the overall coup plot, and this would have just been one of the covert operations that were launched against the Trump campaign. So very, very good information, and this is the type of information when you get it, if you know the backstory and all the other details like I do, and many of you do as well, if you've looked at my timeline, this would certainly make sense to you. Go back and look at my timeline at that period of March through May of 2016 and look at all the things that were being set up. This is happening at the same time. Well done, Ron Paul Institute and Daniel, whatever your name is. Very good. Did any of you get to check out the transcript of John Ratcliffe questioning Colonel Vindman? Absolutely fantastic. Conservative Treehouse has posted it up there, and if you haven't read it yet, you should. It doesn't take that long. It's just a line of questioning from Ratcliffe as he goes through and just destroys Vindman. Now, we heard Nunes say that Ratcliffe destroyed him in a couple minutes flat, and it's absolutely true. If you go and read the word-for-word transcript of the questioning of Vindman by Ratcliffe, Ratcliffe just destroys him, but he goes one step farther. He goes one step farther. He actually gets Vindman at the end of the conversation, the questioning. Ratcliffe takes it into a completely different direction, which makes the lawyers for Vindman go crazy, as well as the Democrats on the committee, because then Ratcliffe gets him to a point where he says, wait a minute, according to your testimony, you're saying that you knew it was clear that the president had said he wanted them to look into this corruption and the various types of corruption that was going on, whether it was the Bidens, the stuff going on in 2016, the stuff going on with the fired prosecutor, the stuff going on with Alexandra Chalupa, all this type of stuff that was going on. Ratcliffe says you were aware that the president told the Ukrainian president that he wished he would look into those things, yet you, Mr. Vindman, went to your contacts in Ukraine and you essentially told them to ignore the president. Now, as a military officer under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, that's a crime because the president is the commander-in-chief. So as soon as Ratcliffe got onto this line of questioning, Vindman figured out pretty quickly exactly how he had just set himself up for a UCMJ violation. And he quickly started stumbling over his words, and Ratcliffe already had him, though. Ratcliffe already had him nailed. And at which point the lawyers for Vindman, two of them, as well as a couple people in the Democrats on the committee, jumped in and tried to do anything they could to stop the line of questioning or what have you, but it didn't get taken out of the record. It is there. You can certainly see it in black and white in text, and it signals that Mr. Vindman may be having some troubles. I'm sure that his higher-up chain of command, plus the fact that he wore a military uniform there to make a political accusation against the president when he really doesn't wear a military uniform to work every day. He probably hasn't worn that uniform in years. So, anyway, he's got some issues to deal with in the future. Wow, did you see Molly Hemingway on Fox News? So Fox News came out, as we reported right here, about a week or so ago, making it clear that none of their host or guest appearing on Fox were to say the name Eric Sciamarella. They were not allowed to say the name. So all these hosts for all last week or so on Fox keep referring to the whistleblower, and they say, well, and everybody thinks we know the name. We're not allowed to say the name. So everybody knows you're not allowed to go on Fox and say the name. So Molly Hemingway is on, and Howie Carr's show, and also that idiot Philip Raines who's obviously the Reverend Clinton spokesman, is on, and she drops Eric Sciaramella's name. she drops Eric Sharamella's name, and I mean, Howie Carr just literally just gets blown out. I mean, he doesn't know. He's tripping over his words. He's trying to back out of it. He's trying, well, we can't really say. We don't know. I don't know if that's the, name of that person, if that's the whistleblower or not. I mean, we don't know. It could be. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. We don't know. And Molly Hemingway just sitting there smiling like ear to ear. And then even Philip Raines looks over like, I think that's the first time anyone on Fox has said that name, because he's obviously, like everyone else, has been told, don't say that name. So Molly Hemingway likely will never be on Fox again, but she certainly broke the ice, and now that she has said the name on Fox, I wonder how many other Fox people will. But it was hilarious. You got to watch that clip and look at the look on the faces of Philippe Raines and what's his name, Howie Carr, what's his name? But you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, you got to see the look on their faces when she drops Eric Sharamella's name. That is hilarious, man. Absolutely classic and priceless. Well, we find out now that Schiff has, the bug-eyed fool, Adam Schiff, has denied all of the Republicans' requested witnesses, all 8 of them, because he says he's not going to allow his hearings to turn into to have these sham claims. Sham claims. Nope, can't have the whistleblower, can't have the Bidens, can't have any of those other people, can't have Nellie Orr, because they would be sham claims. So there you go. That's the process that they say is fair. Schiff denies every single one of Nunes' requests for witnesses in the impeachment, whatever you call it. Inquiry, whatever you want to call it. So there you go. None of the witnesses, including Schiff himself, is of course not going to testify either. But it was a wise move for Nunes to do it. I think he knew that Schiff wasn't going to allow him to have any of these witnesses because it will expose and shine the light of truth on the sham that's actually happening. So of course he knew this would be denied. But the important thing, like I said before, is that he forced Schiff to deny. Now they can move on to the next thing, which is questioning why. And the whole upcoming week, on behalf of the Republicans, will be over and over again, all in asking the question, why? And Schiff is going to have to do better than just saying, well, it's because they're trying to support some sham claims. Then we find out from Nikki Haley, who I'm not a big fan of. She's pretty much of a neocon, but Nikki Haley tells CBS in an interview that Rex Tillerson, and General Kelly tried to get her to join them in resisting Trump while they were serving under him. Can you believe that? Well, we already knew that John Kelly was a fraud, but I didn't know that much about Tillerson. But now it appears it was both Tillerson and John Kelly who were working against Trump, and they tried to bring Nikki Haley on board to have her work on behalf of working against Trump while they're serving under him. And I guess the only thing that bothers me about this is that why does Nikki Haley wait until now to tell us that? Why now? Shouldn't she have told the president that on day one, as soon as Kelly and Tillerson came to her and said, yeah, we're working against Trump, and we would like you to help us work against Trump. She should have went right to Trump at that point and said, hey, 2 of your cabinet members just asked me to work against your interest or whatever. And it should have been made public at that point. Those two should have been gone long before he actually got rid of them. And now we know why he did. He stuck with John Kelly way too long. Got rid of Tillerson pretty quickly, but John Kelly stuck around way too long. Never trusted him, ever. Then we get this crazy post by Papagalopoulos. He puts up this tweet, and then literally within like an hour after putting it up, he takes it down. So I'm not sure what to make of this, whether he took it down because someone told him to, he was threatened, or maybe found out that the information was incorrect. But nevertheless, Papagalopoulos on November the 9th, 2019, at 2:10 p.m., posted up the following, quote, breaking, Joseph Mifsud has been kidnapped by Italian intelligence services and forcefully removed from his hideout. Joseph Missid has been kidnapped by Italian intelligence services and forcefully removed from his hideout. And then within an hour after posting that up, he takes it down. Huh. Well, we do have Lindsey Graham. I believe he was on Maria Bartiromo this morning, and I think, take it for what it's worth, I'm not a huge fan of Lindsey Graham, and I have to actually see something he does before I believe he's going to do it, because he talks a lot but does very little. But he did tell Maria Bartiromo that in his mind, as far as he's concerned, and he is the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee where the trial is held, he says that either the whistleblower comes forward and testifies in the House hearings, or the Senate will kill the impeachment. No whistleblower, no impeachment trial, according to Lindsey Graham. Let's see if he sticks to that. Many of you remember from back in 2008 when Ron Paul was really popular, even in 2012, was running. There was a guy out there, an activist named Adam Kokesh, and he was very active in the Ron Paul movement, and it looks like Adam Kokesh is going to be running for the Libertarian Party nomination. So I haven't heard from Kokesh in a while. I didn't know what happened to him. He disappeared or something, but he had some legal issues, I know. But haven't heard much from him. But it looks like he's now back in the game, and he's going to be running on the Libertarian Party ticket. And a little surprised at that. I thought he might be a Trump supporter, but I don't know. I haven't heard from him in a long time, so I don't know what his thoughts are. But I guess you could do worse maybe than Adam Kokesh in the Libertarian Party. I just don't want to see him suck a lot of votes away from Trump. Right now, if you're a Libertarian, you should be supporting Trump. Adam. Finally, Vendeman is going to be removed from the National Security Council. But it gets even better. It gets even better. Apparently, in the old days, back prior to the 2000s, it was typical that there would be maybe about 100 National Security Council people there around the White House. But under Obama, that number ballooned to about 230. So the Trump administration is now going to go back and narrow that number back from where it is now around 230 down to 100. And they are literally going to get rid of everybody there in the NSC, which is where a lot of the mischief is coming from. A lot of the mischief. A lot of the plants by Obama and Rice and Brennan were planted into the NSC because they come from all different agencies in the government and they're barricaded in the White House. They are the root of where a lot of this stuff has been coming from leaks to plots and everything else. So they are going to get rid of not just Vindman, but they are going to clean house of the 230 people there on NSC detail. They're all going to be shipped out, and then they're going to bring in about 100 new people. And so they'll never get back to those large numbers. But all the Obama holdovers that have been plotting from within the NSC are about to get the boot out the door, and they're going to totally reload, but they're only going to go with about 100 as opposed to well over 200 NSC staffers, just 100, and we hope that they'll be selected much better. Well, actually, I'm sure the ones Obama selected, they selected for a purpose with Brennan and Rice and the others. So now we're going to get people in there selected by people, hopefully, who are loyal to Trump. So we're going to get rid of the cabal, the NSC cabal. It's going away. Draining the swamp, 230 at a time. There you go. Well done, Mr. President. Dumbass of the week. Well, we have Montague Mueller. He's going to go with Schiff's right eye, his right bulging eye, his left bulging eye, and his enormous empty head. Adam Schiff for brains. Faye is going to go with Mark Zaid. Patty Willing is going to go with Adam Schiff, the bug-eyed fool, Lindsey Graham, and Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, or Hiawatha. Linda Martin, she's going to go with the bug-eyed fool, Madam Botox, and Lindsey Graham. Jenny Tweets is going to go with the Rotten Reverend, Pocahontas, and the bug-eyed fool. Mona Lisa, she's going to go with Schiff for brains, right along with the Rotten Reverend. Gary's going to go with Lindsey John Graham McCain. Very well done, Gary. Yes, they're one and the same, I do believe. Lindsey John Graham McCain. And then, of course, the Republican senators. You're absolutely correct. The Republican senators are a mess. Gene is going to go with the bug-eyed fool, Yovanovitch, and the voters in Virginia. Sorry about that, Gene. You know, Gene, you're the first person I thought of when I saw the vote in Virginia, but Virginia's been going that way for a long time. I understand the Republicans don't have a very good ground game there, that they don't really work very hard in Virginia. All we can hope for is that the Democrats F things up so bad in Virginia that there'll be a massive recoil, and that someday we can start moving Virginia back into the red column. My empathy is with you, Gene. Thank you so much. Oregon Outback is going to go with ABC and CBS. Gordon Barron is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. Amy Burley is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Graham, and Madame Botox. Sue Sung is going to go with Graham, the Bug-Eyed Fool, and Sharamella. Peter James, he's going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Graham, and CBS. Yes, CBS may be getting themselves involved in a wrongful termination lawsuit. Let's see. We have Dennis Waddell. He's going to go with the Pencil Neck Geek Schiff. Brian Larkin is going to go with Chelsea Hubble and the Rotten Reverend. Well done, Brian. Jamie is going to go with Schiff, the Bug-Eyed Fool, Graham, and the Demonic Buzzard. Stage Door Johnny, he's going to double down on that, and he's also going to go with the Demonic Buzzard. Ed Lauder, the Republicans for letting impeachment gain steam. Yes, you're absolutely correct. There are a handful of Freedom Caucus guys and a few others fighting back, but it's largely on the Senate side that I'm very, very disappointed. But not surprised, just I expect from them people, but very disappointed nonetheless. And his second pick is going to be the Bug-Eyed Fool. Thank you, Ed. Youngblood, Schiff for Brains, Sharamella, and Brennan. Coyote is going to go with Liawatha. Douglas is trying to get away with the extra picks as usual. Douglas is going to go with Swallowwell, Joy Behar, and Trump Jr. And then on a separate post, he's going with Megan Smelly for trying to get her nose back into things. No, we don't want Megan Smelly back. Well done, Douglas. Keith is going to go with Lindsey Graham. J.C. Hasty is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Madame Botox, and the MSM. Jonathan Cassidy is going to go with CBS, ABC, then Schiff, the Bug-Eyed Fool, and the Rotten Reverend. Jeanette Bateman, the Bug-Eyed Fool, Graham, and ABC, CBS. Mike G, our good friend across the pond, dealing with the unbelievable situation there regarding Brexit. Thanks so much, Mike, for your post to keep us all informed on the insider's view. Enjoyed your last comment, and keep posting us up and keep us up on what is going on the inside view. Because to be honest with you, Mike, the American media practically ignores what's going on in the UK with Brexit. You have to actually go out and look for it. You have to go to find UK sources and other sources, because it ain't in the American media's lexicon. So Mike G is going to go with Lindsey Graham, the Rotten Reverend, and Sessions. Yes, Sessions. My goodness. Why does Sessions think that after the weak performance that he gave, and maybe something worse, that people want him back? I guess but when you look at the last Senate race in Alabama, what a freak show that was. My goodness, folks, down there in Alabama. I shouldn't even talk, because we've got a couple of bad ones here in Ohio too. But I understand my own. I understand my own question before I even ask it. How you get these people? But I don't know. I don't know what to think about Sessions. Very, very disappointed in Sessions, and I'd rather just see him just retire. Let's get some young blood, some young, very talented guy down there in Alabama who's a real conservative, and let's just get someone in there that can win quite a few terms and hold that seat, because Sessions is not going to hold that seat for that much long. Even if he won it, he might only hold it for another 1, maybe 2 terms. I don't know how old he is, but he's not old enough to hold it for longer than 2 terms, I don't think. Linda Thomas is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. Ricky Ricardo is going to go with ABC, CBS, and Ashley. And Ashley, he's referring to the left-winger who was fired from CBS, even though she's not the guilty party. And he's suggesting, of course, she's going to go out and vote for the Rotten Reverend and all the Democrats and all the other things. We should have no empathy for her. She's, after all, a left-wing loon. So there you go. Thank you, Ricky Ricardo. Let's see. Sherman Lynn. Sherman Lynn is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool. Rose Quartz will also go with the Pencil Neck Geek. Adam Schiff. Jack Kennedy is going to go with the Psychiatric Panel. Yes, JFK. I've heard about this, Jack Kennedy. I have heard about this. I think I heard it's going to happen this week. These people have been out there for a couple years. The Chinese chick and then the 2 old guys that wrote the books. There's these 3 shrinks that have written books about why Trump should be impeached because he's nuts. These people will only be laughed at if they appear in front of Congress. If the Democrats are stupid enough to bring these 3 fools in front of the House, they will be shredded and made to look like fools. And so I hope they actually do it in a way. But yeah, it's sickening to see something like that. Gregory Woolery, HRC, the Rotten Reverend, ABC and CBS, solid picks. Daniel is going to go with Lindsey Graham for the Dumbass of the Year. Yeah, he just may win that honor. He's got one last chance to perform, and we'll see how he does. But I'm pretty much on board with you. Cards is going to go with Jane Fonda, Hanoi Jane. She just never goes away. And she's a nut, and she's a dingbat. She always has been. And she said something, she was being interviewed after her arrest, and she's going, yeah, for 4 decades now, we've been telling people that we only have 10 years left, and we have just got to get the word out. Her own statement that for the last 40 years, they've been saying that we've got 10 years. Exactly. For the past 40 years, you've been saying we got 10 years. That's pretty much it, right? So she's so stupid that she would actually make a statement like that and expect us to take her seriously. What a mess. Hanoi Jane Fonda will never change her spots. Well, MC McDo is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, Mark Zaid, and Lindsey Graham. Very solid picks there. And then we have Whimsical Fancies. Whimsical Fancies must be a new subscriber. Welcome to TowerGate. And Whimsical Fancies is right. It's the spelling. It's not spelled the way you would normally spell that. Anyway, Whimsical Fancies is going to go with ABC, CBS, and Graham. Yeah, I mean, it looks like we have a pretty strong consensus. Of course, I think just by going through the list, we can all tell that the Bug-Eyed Fool, the Pencil Neck Geek, Adam Schiff, is going to win this week pretty handily. It looks like he doubled, almost tripled the amount of votes of the 2nd and 3rd place finishers. So a very, very strong performance by the Bug-Eyed Fool. He's going to win this week, hands down, not even close. Adam Schiff is our Dumbass of the Week. And believe me, he's won this award quite a few times. Number 2 is going to be Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham getting a lot of play. And we have a dead heat, a perfect tie for 3rd place between the Rotten Reverend, the Demonic Buzzard, and ABC CBS. So there we have it. 1st place, the Bug-Eyed Fool. 2nd place, Lindsey Graham. A tie for 3rd between the Rotten Reverend and ABC CBS. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. See you. Bye.